We've all heard those influencers out there say things like stay hard or keep hammering or do hard things. And they say it for a reason, right? Because when you do hard things, you get good things. But how do we do hard things that when we don't actually want to do them? How do we make it stick? Well, in this episode, I'm going to walk you through the mental switch that I flipped to actually trick my brain into liking hard things, to kickstart momentum in life, in business, and how you can do the same thing too. Now, over the years, as I've been building my companies at Carrot.com and other companies that I've been a part of investing in and starting and growing from struggling to make the first 10,000, 100,000, then million, then 10 million, and well into the tens of millions now in net worth and 8 figures plus in revenue, I've had to do a lot of hard things. And every step along the way, I've continually hit these walls and these lines where I've asked the question, oh my gosh, do I want to step into this? Am I willing to step into the pain that's required to grow through this? And I remember vividly, it was years and years back, I asked myself that question. I said, am I willing to do this? And in that moment is when I started to make the switch. I flipped this switch. I walked through this process I'm going to walk you through that I still do today. Whenever I hit those lines, whenever I hit those spots, when my body and my mind are telling me, dude, hold on, slow down. This looks like it's going to be painful. And I've tricked my mind into liking to grow through the pain rather than feeling that pain. Okay. I was hiking up the Pacific Crest Trail with some of my buddies last year, and this is something we try every single year to get up there and get 30 to 50 miles in the trail. And we have an aim to hike the whole Oregon section of the PCT over the next decade. Now, is that hard? Not really that hard. I mean, it's challenging, but not that hard. But when I was up in the mountains with them, my attorney, Derek, he's a big hiker. He said, hey, have you ever heard about a type 1, type 2, and type 3 fun in the outdoor world? And I said, no, I haven't heard of it. And so what he told me was type 1 fun is fun that basically was fun all the time, right? It was fun all the time. When you planned it, it was fun. When you were looking at it, it was fun. When you're doing it, it was fun. When you look back, it was fun. It was fun. That's type 1 fun. Okay. Type 2 fun, though, is fun that, man, when you were looking ahead at it, man, it looked fun, it looked challenging, but it looked fun. While you were doing it, it was not fun at all. It was hard. It was challenging. There were blisters on your feet in that hike. It was excruciating. You were hungry. You were second guessing whether you should even do it. But then, man, after that challenge was over, you look back and go, man, that was amazing. That was amazing. And type 3 fun is fun that was never fun while you were doing it, and it was never fun looking back. That's like the death-defying type of stuff where you go, that was miserable, and I never want to go through that again. Okay, what we want to aim for when we're doing things outdoors or adventure fun is type 2 fun. It's fun that, man, it is not fun while you're doing it, but you look back and go, man, I grew so much. That was amazing. I was over in Ireland with my parents and my younger brother on vacation about a month and a half ago. And we drove this road down a place called Dingle. Dingle's on the southwest peninsula of Ireland. And my friends and I, about a decade ago, we were there on a trip. We were backpacking around Ireland. And we rented these road bikes from a person there in a place called Killarney. And these road bikes, mine was missing the easiest gear. And we picked up one of those tourist maps. And the tourist map showed Killarney, showed Dingle, and it didn't look like it was that far away. And we didn't do our conversion from kilometers to miles very well. And we asked the person there, we said, hey, can we ride these bikes to Dingle? And he looks at us kind of crazy and goes, well, technically you can. And we said, well, how far is it? He goes, it's 55 kilometers. And we go, oh, doing the math in our head, we're thinking that's 20 or 30 miles, right? Bad American tourists. And so the next day we woke up, we strapped our backpacks on, we hopped on those bikes and we started riding 55 kilometers. What we didn't recognize was a headwind the entire time. And the last 15 kilometers that tourist map did not show was heavy grades, switchbacks back and forth, tour buses coming up, going down. It was hard. I remember a few miles into that, I wanted to give up. I remember literally looking at the map and looking at the mile markers on the side of the road and saying, man, we're not halfway yet. It'd be closer to go back. It'd be closer to turn around. And then we finally hit this point where we hit the halfway marker and something changed. Something changed in me. My energy lifted. My optimism lifted because now there was no longer a path to move backwards. It was going to be just as easy to move forward. Okay, we didn't know about the last 15 kilometers though. And so a new energy, a new optimism kicked forward, and we said, okay, this is a chance to create a memory. This is a chance to grow. This is a chance to do something hard. I look back at that experience as a type 2 fun. When we were in Ireland a month and a half ago, we drove that same road, and it was a long road. My parents were like, you guys rode this on a bike? And I looked back with just joy on that experience, type 2 fun. Okay, so what we're going to walk through is we're going to talk about hard things. We're going to talk about why don't we just go the easy route. We're going to talk about the key principles to flip that switch in our minds, to trick our minds to like hard things. There's 3 of those key switches we're going to talk about. And then I'm going to give you some examples of some of the hard things I've done in my life that have increased my capacity to really enable me to do the things in business and life that I've had a chance to do. Okay, so let's talk about why even do hard things. Why even do hard things? Well, there's a few things first, okay? The first concept, and this is kind of a part of that mindset shift that we have to start to make, is we don't get to avoid hard, right? We don't get to avoid hard. We all know people who have taken the easy decisions, who have done the lazy things, done the easy things. I have a question for you. Is their life easier today, or is it harder today because of those decisions? Well, almost every single time their life is harder because they made the easy decision. So we don't get to avoid hard. And I think as long as we recognize that and realize that we don't get to avoid hard, then we have to ask ourselves and make a decision. We say, well, what if we could choose our hard? So let's just set that down as a baseline, first of all, that we're both on level playing field. Make a comment on this YouTube video below. Hey, yes, we're on a level playing field. I understand we don't get to avoid hard. Every single one of us will experience hard. Okay, as long as we're acknowledging that together, now we get to say, what if you could choose your hard? Okay, we can't choose every hard thing. There's hardships that we go through. My father was diagnosed with the terminal brain cancer just recently. That's hard. I didn't get to choose that. He didn't get to choose that. But what I can tell you is by choosing hard things on a daily basis, it makes the hard things that we don't choose even easier to deal with. Okay, so let's choose the hard things that we can control to make everything else easier. Number 2. Is growth and transformation comes from getting out of your default and out of your comfort zone and stretching your limits. I did a video recently where we talked about how to get unstuck. If you're in stagnation, if you're stuck, how do you get unstuck? And one of the things I talked about in that video, click the link below or check out the show notes or the description to find that video on our YouTube channel. It is we get into those modes because we're in default mode. Because we're doing the things that are comfortable, because we're doing the things that we have continually done, and we don't want to take a leap or take a stretch out of that norm for fear of failure, for fear of it being painful or whatever it is. But being in default keeps us there. In order to grow, if you've got goals, if you want to go somewhere, if you're not content, this is for all of you. You guys might be saying, well, dude, why should we all have to do hard things? Okay. If you are fully content with your life and you're fully content with where it's going and you're pumped on where you are and you're pumped on the vision on you're going and by doing what you're currently doing is going to take you there and you're content, amazing. You probably don't need to change a whole lot. But if you complain at all, if you're not content about your life, if you're not content about your income, if you're not content about your house or your fitness or the way that you look or the way that you feel or any of those things, then you have to step through and do hard things to get to where you want to go. Or you've got to reset your expectations. You've got to reset your expectations, lower the bar and say, I'm bringing that bar down here and I'm just going to step under that over that lower bar. Okay, but I don't want that for you. That's not why you're on this podcast. That's not why you're here on my channel diving into the Entrepreneur Freedom Formula episodes. You want to raise the bar. You want more out of life. You want to make a greater impact, right? So if you want more out of life, you need to become more. If you want more, you need to become more. And you become more by increasing your capacity. We're going to talk about increasing capacity here in a bit in this episode. But most people are trained to stop short of their limits. This is another reason why we should do hard things, because most people are trained to stop short of their limits. They slack on the last rep. They walk in on that jog. They walk in that last 10 to 15 feet, right? They stop short of excellence. And when we stop short of excellence, when we do the easy thing and stop short and we do one fewer versus one more, we're training ourselves to do easy. So when hard things come our way, we don't know how to deal with them. It's truly hard. It starts to shut us down. So hopefully that starts to make a case for why hard things are important. It's going to help you in every other part of your life. And if you want more, you need to be more. To be more, you need to do more. Okay. So let's talk about the key principles now to make this switch. Okay. To make this switch. Because in order to move towards those goals, we need to start to like hard things, because it's really hard to do things and be motivated to go do things if we don't like it. If it's like, oh my gosh, I don't like running, right? I've never been a runner per se by identity. I've never said, man, I am a runner and that's what I like to do all the time. But I actually like to run because it's hard. I've told my wife that, and I told my mother-in-law that. On my 40th birthday, I woke up. We were up at the lake cabin, and we have a cabin, family cabin up on the lake in Oregon called Lake of the Woods. And last time I went around, I rode around on a bike, and I think it was 9 or 10 miles. And it's up at, I think, about 5,000 feet in elevation, so really thin air. And I woke up 6 in the morning, didn't plan on doing this. I hadn't ran in quite a while. And I go, you know what? For my 40th birthday, I'm going to run around the lake. and my mother-in-law, so why would you do that? And she goes, do you want to do it? I go, no, I don't really want to do it. I don't like running per se. But you know what I do like? I like doing hard things because of what I get on the other side of that. And for most people, that's going to blow people's mind. Why would you do the thing that you don't like to do? Right? So that's what we're talking about. How do you flip the switch to actually like doing those things? So the first principle here in flipping that switch is choose your hard. Okay, we already talked about that you get a chance to choose. Now let's talk about choosing your hard. And so you get to realize that you get to choose. You get one, but not both. I can't choose to have things easy today and easy later. Okay, you don't get both. You either choose easy today and hard later down the road, or you choose hard choices today, which makes your life easier tomorrow. You don't get both. There isn't a easy today, easy later scenario that I've ever seen. Maybe there is one somewhere, but I've never seen it. Okay, so choose your hard. And in order to make that shift, if you want to choose hard things today, which do take some discipline, some sacrifice in order for a better life tomorrow, there's a few things that have helped me to kind of make that shift. The first one is like shifting from why do I have to do this to I get to do this. So going back to that run as an example, I didn't have to do that. A lot of people, my wife ended up joining me. She got out of bed and she's like, you know what, I'm going to join you for it. And so during that entire thing, I was going, okay, this hurts, but I get to do this. I'm healthy. My legs work. My lungs work. I'm outside. I'm in nature. I'm seeing things. Other people are asleep right now. And I get to see these amazing, beautiful things. I get to do this thing. Is it hard? Yeah, it's hard, but I get to do this. Okay. The number two part of this mindset shift of choosing your hard is shifting towards the mindset of trials are joy. In James 1 in the Bible, it starts out as, you know, something or other, I'm paraphrasing, but count all trials as joy, because trials of all kinds, basically make you perfect and complete, lacking in nothing. They increase your steadfastness. When your steadfastness is increased, your faith is increased. I'm paraphrasing in a big way. Okay, but what it all boils down to is it says, don't run away from trials. Because when we run away from trials, we lose the opportunity to actually grow. We lose the opportunity to strengthen ourselves. We lose the opportunity to get better. And when we run away from those trials, it reinforces the fact of every limiting belief we have. It reinforces it, and things get weaker. We have a harder time dealing with life. We get less of what we want. So make that mindset shift to trials are joy, because they lead to growth and a better future, even though we don't want to do them right now, right? And then the last thing on here, and I'm going to go back to that running analogy, is train yourself to go further versus stop short. I mentioned a little bit of it sooner. I'm going to go into it a little bit deeper on the second key principle with making that mindset shift to trick your brain into liking hard things. But train yourself to go further versus stopping short. So I'm going to put a pin in that one. We're going to come back to that one here in a second. So that's the first mental mindset shift to start to flip that switch to like trials. Number one, recognize you get to choose hard. You only get one choice, but either way, you are going to experience hard things. Okay. Number two is once I recognize that and I'm like, dude, I want to gamify this, then I want to be able to choose my hard and make all the other hard things that are being thrown at me easier. Now, how do I make this work? Well, the second mindset switch is we need to focus on increasing capacity. Okay, when I start to think about hard things as in not something that's taking this out of me, a lot of people, when you're doing something hard, and I used to do this as well, you go, oh my gosh, this is taking so much energy out of me. Oh my gosh, this is like causing pain. Oh my gosh, this is taking time away from me. I don't want to go do this thing and read versus flipping through Instagram. It takes time away from me. We oftentimes think of the hard things as taking something away from us. So I started to flip that around and say, well, what if hard things don't take anything away from us? What if it actually gives us something? What if it increases our capacity to do every other part in our life that's important to us? Okay, hard things increase for us, they don't take away. Growth is about increasing capacity, not about removing something or making something so we're deficient on it. I'm going to dive into my iPad. And I'm going to refer back to a model I call the momentum meter that I have a previous YouTube video on. Go check out that YouTube video and that podcast and the Entrepreneur Freedom Formula. We'll have it in the show notes. But one of the things with that mindset of increasing capacity that I want to focus on is whenever we're looking for growth, I'm always usually looking for some sort of transformation, right? Some sort of transformation. In a video that I recorded right before this one on how to get unstuck, we talked about needing to make the leap from frustration, jumping over the line from frustration to success to transformation. The only way to do that, to jump the line, to move from frustration to success to transformation, is we have to design what we want. We have to be clear on what we want. We have to make a decision that we're going to do certain things. We're going to change the way we're showing up. But then in the momentum meter, this is where it gets more specific. To move towards that transformation that I talked about above, every single time we move to the left, and let's say you're in the burnout mode where you're just pretend this is a pendulum, and go check out that video for the full explanation of the momentum meter, okay? But pretend this is a pendulum. And when you move this pendulum up to the left, it'll move to the equal and opposite length to the right. So if you're always distracted, if you're moving from email to Slack to text messages to Instagram to YouTube, and you're not really having a chance to get your focus work in, then you let that go, and that is what your rest is, right? Your rest is, I'm just going to be distracted. You let it go, you're going to stick into busy work. When you bounce back and forth between distraction and busy work, that's what burnout is. And burnout is not from working too much. Burnout is from not doing the things outside of work that give you energy, the things that you love the most. Okay? So in order to move out of burnout and really move towards transformation, we need to then pull the pendulum up and to the left, right? So if I want to move out of burnout, I need to prune, which means I need to rest. I need to find some ways to rest from being turned on all the time towards my work and towards growth. So I need to pull up this way. Let's say I pull up that pendulum over here to the physical energy. That means in order to get out of burnout, go do something physical. Go do something hard. Go do something that gets your body going. Go do something that gets your blood pumping. Go do something that you probably have been avoiding for a while because it requires a decision to do something hard. But when you let go of that pendulum, you now have the energy, you now have the momentum to fly back over, fly right through busy work and burnout and go over to producing. Now you're doing the things, you have the energy, you have the clarity to go do the things that produce the progress you want to make. Okay. But now let's say you are in default mode here again. Let's say after a month or 2 months or 3 months or 6 months, you've been doing that, but you kind of feel stuck again. You feel like, man, this is better than it was, but I feel stuck. Well, now you need to move that pendulum up even more, right? Which requires you now to move that up into mental clarity, which for me is what are the things that I'm doing to get insanely mentally clear? Maybe this is meditation. Maybe it's yoga. Maybe it's blocking out thinking time on your calendar once a week. Maybe it's having a coach, whatever it is, but it requires you to get out of your comfort zone and move into another way of thinking. So you pull it up to mental clarity. Bam, I'm mentally clear. I'm physically moving. In order to pass these lines, y'all, in order to pass these lines, you have to do something hard. You have to do something that takes you out of your comfort zone, that takes you out of that zone of your default. You let that go. Bam, I'm into creating my art now. My art are the things that give me energy. I'm amazing at it. It creates revenue for the business. I love doing them. To move up to transformation, you have to blast through another one of these lines, and every single one of these lines requires you to do something hard. So now let's say you've been in this spot where you're like, man, I've been doing my art. This is great, but I don't know. I've got something more in me. I now see myself as a different person. I see myself as a different identity. And this identity now has given me a bigger vision for what I want to tackle. Okay. Now we pull up and go, okay, cool. Let me really shape my identity. Let me really shape who I want to transform into. And that identity is going to shape a brand new vision that your previous identity, that previous person that you were before you did all these hard things, could never believe and grasp that you could actually accomplish that. Bam, that new identity now is going to let you swing all the way over here to transforming your business. Okay. So when we ask about why do hard things, y'all, why do hard things? It stretches your capacity. It's all about capacity, because when we do the hard things, we push past these lines, it stretches our capacity, which allows us to do more over here. And then every challenge or trial that gets thrown at us that we didn't choose, you know, those ones that are health related or relationship related or other things, economy, those are the things now we can deal with them more easily. Okay, so we'll bounce back out of the iPad. If you missed that part and you're listening to the audio version, I'd encourage you to go check out the YouTube version of it. So we've increased capacity. So what are some ways that I've increased capacity in the past? 75 hard. So I've done that challenge 3 times. Every single time I did it, momentum popped. Okay, I got mentally clear, started to step into new identity. Bam, work on the other end, started to do amazing things as well. Okay, the go one more mindset. So going back to that running analogy, when I had initially, and I'm going to talk about 75 hard with this as well. Now I've got one final and third mental flip or mental switch that I flip that helps me to trick my mind into liking hard things that I'm going to drop into here in a second. But talking about the go one more mindset. Okay, earlier I mentioned that those people who struggle and are stagnant and don't do hard things, they do the one less mindset. Once again, they walk the last 10 feet. They do one fewer rep, or they half-ass it on that last rep. And that trains them that that's their capacity. Their capacity continually lowers. Okay, so if you do the one more mindset, what I find is your capacity continually increases because you're challenging what you feel is possible. So on that run, I hadn't done any training for quite a while. It ended up being a 10.5 mile run, not a 7-mile run like I was told that it was before I ran it. And before I started, I go, okay, you know, I did no training for this. I literally woke up and decided to go on this run. I'm going to run 1 mile on, and then I'm going to walk a mile, and then I'm going to run a mile, and I'm going to walk a mile. And that way it's still challenging, it's still hard, but that's the way I'll do it. So I'll end up running 5 miles, walking 5 miles, and we'll be good to go. Okay. So I always start out with some sort of a goal that seems hard to me in that moment. Okay. It seems hard to me in that moment. If I'm out here doing a workout and I'm told to do 20 reps, in my mind, I'm going, man, okay, 20 reps. Yeah, that seems pretty hard. Okay. But then what I do every single time is as I get nearer towards that threshold that I had set, that belief or that limit that I had set, I always go, I wonder if I can do more. I'm going to do one more. Okay. So in that run, I hit the mile. My app told me, hey, you got the mile. And I go, you know what? I don't need to stop running right now. I can keep going. I don't feel like I got to walk. So let me go one more. Let me go one more mile. Okay. So I ran one more mile. That second mile hit and I go, okay. I don't really feel like I have to stop right now. It's starting to hurt and I'm a little bit tired, but let's go one more. Let's go one more. I did one more. I played that game all the way until I ran 10.5 miles and made it back to the cabin. I ran the 10 miles. I didn't stop. I didn't walk at all. I went in the one more mindset. What I would have done 20 years ago is things would have got hard 3/4 of a mile in. I would have walked to get to the mile, and I would have walked the next mile. So I would have actually walked 1.25 miles instead of 1. And then I probably would have had a real hard time finishing the entire thing. And let me know in the comments box if you can relate. Are you someone who naturally steps into that mode and that mindset? Okay, I'll give you another example. So when I did 75 hard the first time, one of the things I wanted to challenge myself on was I didn't want to have a trainer map out my workouts for me. because that was one of the things I would always fall back on and have a crutch of literally having a trainer in my gym, in my office that is here when I walk in. That person's here. Okay, when I walk into the office. And when I was away on vacations, I wouldn't train because I didn't have the trainer and I didn't have my gym. And so when I did 75 hard, I said, okay, how can I make this even harder? Not easier. Not how can I have my trainer help me every day? How can I make this even harder? Because I know if it's harder, it's going to grow my capacities to make everything else in my life easier. And so I said, no trainer, I'm going to make all my workouts. And the challenge that I gave myself, and this is how I did my workouts starting 75 hard all 3 times I've done it. I have some equipment. I've got some rubber workout bands. I've got some weights. I've got some kettlebells. I've got shoes I can run in, of course. I've got outside. I've got inside. And I would just have the equipment there and I have my 45 minutes. I go, cool, let me just start doing things. And when I'm tired doing that thing, I'll switch to another thing. And I would kind of plan a little bit. Hey, I want to have a good mix of lower body and abs or your lower body and upper body. And then every single time, though, I'd whip out the jump rope and I go, okay, I'm going to jump rope for a minute straight. Okay. And then I would get close to that minute or I'd hit the minute. I go, one more minute. And I'd play the 1 more minute game. Or if I was doing push-ups, I would go, okay, I'm going to do 25 push-ups. I'd hit the 25 push-ups and I go, okay, I can do another 25. And then I get close to another 25. I'd take a little bit of a break and I go, you know what? I'm going to do 100 push-ups. I'm going to go until I do 100 push-ups. Okay. Then I would do 25 at a time, take a break, hit the 100. And I go, you know what? I still got more in me. I haven't hit my limit yet. I'm now going to do another 100. I'd stack on another 100 and I'd go, I'm going to get to 200 push-ups. Okay. I would get close to 200 push-ups. Like, well, I still got some in me. Let me get to 250. Okay. And then I would get to 250. I'm like, dude, I still got a little bit more in me. Let me get to 275. I go, man, I got a few more in me. Let me get to 300. And I would go, oh my gosh, I'm almost doing, I'm flat toast. I can barely move when I'm doing this. This isn't 300 in a row. It's like 25 at a pop, 25 to 50 at a pop. But then I hit 300 and this is where the growth happens. I hit 300 and I go, get 301. Bam. Okay. 301. Okay, let's get one more. 302, 303. And I remember vividly one time I started with the goal to do 25 push-ups and I did 311 push-ups in that setting. It wasn't in a row. It was in about 15 to 20 minutes, but I did 311 push-ups. Can you imagine what that does for you when you step into that one more mindset? Everything else is easier. Everything else you look at and say, where else am I limiting my ability to go do this? Okay, so step into that increased capacity, go one more. The third way I do that mental switch, and I'm going to recap these for you, then we'll wrap this puppy up, is then I proactively schedule hard things. If you schedule hard things and make them fun and do them with people, then you kind of start to look forward to them because with those first 2 switches I flipped, number 1, I got to choose my hard. I don't get to avoid hard. I get to choose it, so I'm going to choose it. Number 2, hard things increase capacity. So flipping that script, rather than hard things reducing and taking something away from me, hard things increase my capacity to do more and have an easier, better life. Okay. But then number 3, then it goes, well, I want to schedule more of these in. And so a couple things that you can schedule in to make hard things just a part of your life. Number 1, it's something I walked through with my Epic coaching group just recently on something called a Misogi. And a Misogi is a year-defining challenge. It's a 50-50 coin flip, whether you can actually accomplish it. It should help you confront a fear or a massive limiting belief. It should be hard. It should be a strain. It should be something that is crazy, crazy hard that you might not actually finish, but it's possible that you do. And that's something I like to do every single year is pick a Misogi. One year, my Misogi was learn how to swim. That might not be a Misogi at all for you, but I didn't know how to swim until 2020. Literally could not tread water for 20 seconds, could not swim the length of a pool without a life jacket and flippers on. And that to me was hard. It was a fear of mine. And I faced that fear and I learned how to swim. And this year I'm picking up another Misogi, which is now swimming in open water. Because you want to take my original swim fear and move it into something real, that's open water. And so now I have a goal in Misogi to do an open water swim without a life jacket, which is fearful. It's scary for me right now. So pick one year defining challenge that requires you to do something insanely hard. Number 2, I like to pick quarterly micro challenges. It could be going and doing that 15-mile bike ride that you've kind of been putting off on the calendar. It could be going and doing that 50-mile hike that I'm doing in August, okay, that you maybe wouldn't just normally do on a Tuesday afternoon. It could be going and golfing 36 holes or 72 holes in 2 days. Something hard and taxing, but it is a challenge. Something like that. It could be, you know what, I'm going to do 1,000 push-ups today. Just before the end of the day, I got to get 1,000 push-ups in. There's something that a friend of mine created in I think it's called the 12-hour walk. And the 12-hour walk is something that I want to get done before the end of the year. That's going to be maybe my third quarter or fourth quarter hard thing, is you literally wake up in the morning at 6 a.m. or 7, you strap on a backpack, no podcast, no nothing, you walk for 12 hours. Just to your thoughts in your mind, and you see how far you can go, and you see what you're processing in your mind. It sounds crazy, but that could be a hard thing. Okay. And then daily, consistently, I like to then look at what non-negotiables can I lock in on the daily basis that help me do some of these hard things. They're not really hard, but they're hard to stay disciplined on. Read 10 pages a day. That's one of mine. Okay. Work out and break a sweat every single day. That's another one of my 5 daily non-negotiables. But do these hard things on a daily basis they're easy things, but they're hard to do. They're easy to forget, but they're hard to do because it requires us to say no to our default and step into decisions. So let me recap those, guys. I know it's a little bit longer, but the 3 ways that I've tricked my mind into doing hard things. Number 1, recognize you don't get to avoid hard. Choose your hard. Hard now, amazing life later, or easy today and a really hard life later. Number 2, switch flip the script in your brain that the hard things increase capacity. They don't remove something from you. And in order to grow, you have to increase capacity. Number 3 is once you recognize that you get to choose hard, and then you also get to do hard things that increase capacity, move you towards the life that you want, then schedule those things in. Doing those completely shortcutted my mindset around hard things. So I have a question for you guys. Okay. What is the hardest thing you've done this last week? Pop it in the comments box if you're watching this on YouTube, or hit me with the DM on Instagram. It's trevor.mauch. That's trevor.mauch on Instagram. Hit me with the DM. What's the hardest thing you've done this week? And the second thing is, I want you to add on there, what's a hard thing you're committing to do this next week? Something that pushes you out of your comfort zone, something that isn't easy, that you're going to be increasing capacity and growing. Because just like a rubber band, when you pull that rubber band wide, you're stretching that rubber band. When you let go of that rubber band, it's never going to reach that original form that you had it at. It's always going to be wider. It's always going to have a bigger capacity. That's exactly what hard things do to you. Guys, if you enjoyed this episode of the Entrepreneur Freedom Formula, hit subscribe. And guys, if you haven't yet, leave a review on Apple Podcasts. Let's get those reviews up over 20 or 30. That's the way that the Apple algorithm works to show podcasts to other people. Is how are you liking it? Are people listening to it? Are they downloading it? Are they sharing it? Are they reviewing it? And let's get this message in front of more people. I want to see more entrepreneurs building businesses that they absolutely freaking love, and not businesses that trap them. And let's share this with somebody else who you think wants to do hard things but doesn't know how. All right, guys, hit subscribe, follow me on YouTube, follow me on Instagram, and make that comment. What's the hard thing you've done this week, and what's the hard thing you're going to do next week? We'll see you below. All right, guys, have an amazing rest of the week. We'll see you next week.